works.
That wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, well,
Uh-oh.
I guess we do we want to start? I apologize. We'll make sure that we
Let's do
play
it.
the rest of that.
Yeah, we got audio this time, so.
Yes, we did. We did have audio this time. This is just part of the course, though. You know, for me, I guess is to have some form of technical difficulty. Aldous is poor. Aldous is that the contract did not allow any studio edits. But we do have a very exciting show to talk about here today. Welcome back, everybody. This is When in Rome with Michael and Matt. It's been 2 weeks since our last show.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
We took a little bit of a week off to kind of recharge and figure out where we wanted the show to go. The last 2 shows we had done, it was fun, but we were kind of running on fumes in terms of content, and so we wanted to get a good idea together. And so we kind of decided when we first started doing this show, we had found this 10-minute video on that was a breakdown of all of Roman history in 10 minutes, and Matt and I tore it apart.
Yeah, it was good times. I think people appreciated that.
Yeah, the new intro is now the Alan Smithy version. I apologize, Aldous. I accidentally bumped a button, and it stopped your intro. That's my bad. As you well know, technical difficulties on the Nine Rumps Publishing channel are a given. So yeah, we will be sure to play that as our closeout here this evening. So that way we can finish it up. It was actively an accident. Dino De Laurentiis accidentally cut the shit out of Lynch's Dune too. Yeah, I really appreciate Aldous doing this. It's a phenomenal opening, and really glad to have it. But anyways, so tonight we're starting a whole thing where we're going to be looking at videos on ancient Roman history. And so this first one that we're going to be doing is actually it's less of a content video. The stuff comes up on the screen, but it's mainly a music track playing, and it's comparing the first Roman emperor, Augustus, to the last Roman emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos. Both very interesting figures in their own right. And so that is what we're going to be doing here this evening. So let's pull up this clip. Before we do anything like that, Matt, do you have any exciting announcements about Kyrie? Anything fun happening with that?
Since last time we had a stream together, I finished the third of 3 of the delivery boxes, which is which is like pretty secondary, but I'm very excited about them because they look like each of them are like retro. There's like a Nintendo Switch. There's a Sega. There's a Sega game box, and there's a what was the third one? Oh, like a '90s LucasArts PC game cover. So I'm trying to like fit with the like historical fiction thing and say like, what if there were video games in the '80s and '90s of Kyrie products? So I think people are gonna get a kick out of that. It's just kind of a meme, but that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that it sounds it.
And hopefully, if it shows up soon enough, you'll be getting yours ahead of everyone else.
Oh wow!
So,
Oh,
that'll be exciting.
So humbled. I'm very excited. You just remember, you have to draw. So this is one of the things that Matt does with his books and everything, because he's a beast, is he'll draw little versions of his characters in the book. And so I've already told Matt that he needs to draw Alexander the Great in mine, just because.
Absolutely.
We're co-hosts. And
happy to oblige.
But for me, SPQR actually has a massive update. Fulfillment is beginning.
Exciting.
So we're getting the last things at the fulfillment center to RJ at fulfillment, but he should be starting to send out all the stuff. There are people that have already received some things. We sent out all the personalized JoJo covers over the past week, and we are getting the small packages out first, and then as the boxes and the hard covers for Elysian Fields hardcover edition, as all of that stuff comes in, we'll get those out as well. But we are finally getting the ball rolling. I want to make sure that we have the majority of that campaign fulfilled by the time we launch Judex, which will be on July 14th. Bastille Day, we'll be doing that on Bancroft's channel. But I know that generally we save plugs for the end of the stream, but I figure this video
a big deal.
Yeah. And on top of that, this video is a bit short, and I want to make sure that we take time to actually expand on the stuff. So let's dive into this video, which is titled First Roman Emperor versus Last Roman Emperor. So right here we have our two characters that we're focusing on. Obviously, to the left we have Augustus, who is the first Roman emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, and is the son by will of Gaius Julius Caesar. And over here on the right, we have Constantine the 11th, Palaeologos, who is the final emperor of Eastern Rome and leads the defense of Constantinople against the Ottoman invasion. And both are very interesting characters and have got some pretty cool stories. So let's take a look. Now, Matt, before we play anything, is there anything? That
was an amazing survey of the two. So this will be fun.
All right. So this kind of starts off with what they are. The Born here, it's very clear that whoever did this video has a love affair with Constantine the 11th. They've got his like full Greek name down here, Konstantinos Dragasis Palaiologos, and then they just have Gaius Octavius. His birth name is Gaius Octavian Caesar. But when Julius Caesar dies, he wills him his son, and so his name actually becomes Gaius Julius Caesar as well. He takes up that name, and when he defeats Mark Antony and everything during that last set of civil wars, in the aftermath of that, his rising star to becoming the first citizen of Rome leads to him being named Augustus, which becomes a title associated with the role of imperator, of emperor. So, but and there's not really as much to go into on Constantine the 11th's name. He's the 11th Constantine in a dynasty of Eastern Roman emperors. Fun fact, you will hear people use the word Byzantine. Byzantine is and like the more that I have studied Roman history, the more that I have come to disavow the word Byzantine, because it was a term used by East Rome's, I don't want to say enemies, but political adversaries in the West, the Franks and the Roman Catholic Church. They created this term as a way to discredit the East Roman claims to the heirs of the Roman Empire. And so it's really not an accurate term. When you go and you look at the historical documents, primary source documents of contemporary histories by the Ottomans, by the Arabs, by pretty much anybody, they do not call these people the Byzantines. They call them the East Romans.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that it's so easy. You can get into a spat real easy with this topic with some Greek boys, some Byzantine bros on Twitter, because it's what's fascinating about that late antiquity into the Western. Late antiquity, and then into the Middle Ages. There's a lot of different kingdoms that are claiming Roman heritage, right? And and few of them like each other, and they all think that they have the claim,
Well,
and I think Byzantium, Eastern Rome obviously has a really strong claim, but there's people running around saying that we got to factor in what the Franks are going to be doing.
Well, by this point, it's important to remember that Constantine the 11th here dies in 1453. This is less than a generation away from the discovery of the New World. Like, to put that in perspective, Columbus sails in 1492 and on the Santa Maria and gets to the Ile d'Hispaniola, right? The fall of Constantinople is 1453. That is 40 years removed. That is a generation. Like, they are a stone's throw on the historical map away from the discovery of the Americas. And it's a testament really to the longevity of the Roman Empire and the weight that it held culturally, and its ability to stand up to oblivion for as long as it did.
There's an argument. Some folks were like, I've heard Victor Davis Hanson talk about Spain, the interest in going west into the Atlantic and accidentally finding the Americas was to get around the increasing the hegemony of the Ottomans, in the decline
yes.
of the
Well, that does
no
play a
through.
major role into it.
Yeah.
Columbus does as his petition, because he initially tried to get the contract to sail in Italy and they all rejected it. So one of the major ways he was able to influence Ferdinand and Isabella into sponsoring him, his venture to the west, is that his idea was that he would be able to bypass the current trade routes to India and Asia and access effectively the Silk Road in a completely different fashion that would deprive the Ottomans and the Muslim dynasties any sort of financial gain. And as Ferdinand and Isabella had recently done the Reconquista of Spain and had the Spanish Inquisition, this was all something that they were very interested in. But to move this back to the discussion, it's really interesting because you have these two characters that are separated by a literal millennium. Like Augustus becomes a member of the Third Triumvirate at like 40 BCE, and he will live, I want to say, till like 20 or 30 AD, which I'm sure they'll go into in this video. I'm fairly certain they do. And to see a Roman emperor holding sway on the map from the beginning of the turn of modern history to the Middle Age is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So this, again, it really goes to show that whoever did this video really likes Constantine the 11th, because they've got like his full title and translated down there, and they have Augustus's title here, but they don't translate all of it. It's so they regnal name Imperator Caesar Augustus Princeps Civitatis, Emperor of the Romans. Not quite. Imperator is a Latin term that at this like prior to Augustus was like a undefeated general. Caesar Augustus, the August Caesar, Princeps Civitatis, first citizen, like the primary citizen, chief citizen.
Yeah, why not translate that?
I don't know. I'm like I think that the big thing is that Augustus gets a lot of love, and there's a good reason for it. The guy is responsible for a lot of positive things, including the modern aspect of citizenship is derived from political identity, and everything is all derived from the narrative building that Augustus does during his reign. So there's that. But Constantine the 11th does get overshadowed, and so I guess it's just he's trying to give Constantine the 11th a lot of love. I don't blame him for it, but there's very clearly a bias.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right, so yeah, here we go. So born, obviously, whoever wrote this is English is not their first language. So born, 23rd September 63 BC. Born, and then for Constantine the 11th, we have 8th of February 1405. Augustus dies the 19th of August 1480. So I was close with 2080. Died 29 May 1453, which is obviously the fall of Constantinople. And we'll get there, but the fall of Constantinople is a is a pretty interesting thing. But, and in fact, when we finish this up, Constantine the 11th gives a beautiful speech before he sets off on a final charge with his men to defend his city. So we'll read that at the closeout of this. I'll see if I can't pull up a good Augustus speech, but his are a bit more difficult to regulate, and there are but all right. I think Palatine only has one L. I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, it's one L.
Mm-hmm.
I should really learn how to spell, because that's not even a English translation thing. That's just straight up. It's one L.
It's getting a little charming in a way. It's like, okay, this is like some middle school student from Greece.
Maybe, hopefully,
trying to show off. Yeah.
So Augustus is born on the Palatine Hill in Rome, which also goes to showcase his social status as a member of the nobility, because the Palatine is one of the seven original hills of Rome, and it's where all the wealthy people live. Palace of Balakarnae in Constantinople. This is the royal palace there, which at this point, by 1405, you're talking about the establishment of Constantinople as the capital of the Roman Empire happens during Constantine I, some 4 or 5 centuries earlier. It may be even closer to a millennia. So Constantine I was 337. So 272 CE to 337. So it's 14. So it's a millennia. It's a little over a millennia since. So Constantinople has been standing for 1,000 years. And he's at the tail end of a 1,000-year legacy on the Eastern Roman side of things. But the Roman Empire is birthed from Augustus, and that's been going on since at least the turn of BC to AD. And Matt, please feel free to chime in if there's anything that you want to add in.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're better with the names and dates. but I'll
Well,
yeah, I'll try to get in there with the commentary of a different sort. You know.
I feel like this goes without without saying. Uh, language spoken classical Latin and medieval Greek. Now, what I will say here is, this is actually not entirely accurate.
Yeah.
Augustus enters the public life as a was it a pontifex? He comes in as a religious into a religious order, and that's that's how he enters his public life. Is he's a part of the Roman religion as a chief religious figure, and as a result, he has to go through a very formal and rigorous academic education. And
Yeah.
the
I know you're going with this. Yeah.
yeah, the language of academia at this point in time is Greek, ancient Greek. In fact, the majority of the texts that we have from that time are translated from classical Greek. There are some ones that are translated from Latin, but they're mainly like poetry and stuff like that. In fact, one of the things that's special about Julius Caesar's commentaries on his wars in Gaul and the Civil War is the fact that he wrote them in Latin. It's something that distinguishes itself because Caesar wanted his story to be accessible to the common people as a political tool. Great podcast on that. And if it weren't so damn long, we'd analyze it on here. But like, it would literally take us like a year and a half because the video, like the podcast, is 6.5 hours long. Is Dan Carlin's Hardcore History? He has a video called Celtic Holocaust, which is just absolutely phenomenal. So if you guys are looking at something to just listen to while you're doing anything, high recommend.
Yeah. Well, just a quick. It's something that the Byzantine bros miss sometimes. Is they this is just my thoughts. Like, they put that contrast in there, and they just think of the Latins versus the Greeks in a way.
Yeah.
And it's more interesting. The only reason, because like, Alexander the Great is at the back of both of these, basically. Like, and there's more continuity, which is more interesting than I think people tend to pick up, because the first Caesar, like, it does have a strong connection with Greek and with Greek culture, and that's how the Romans were engaging with high culture as they defined it.
It's also important to remember that Greece, its land was not particularly fertile, and so early on, Greece sets out a whole bunch of people to establish Grecian colonies. And one of the main areas that they establish colonies is Italy. Greek culture is heavily influential on Italian culture. And that's not by mistake. That is actively the Greeks kind of go to, do absolutely go to Italy and put down roots there, and their culture intermingles with the local Etrusco Latin cultures of Italy. And that's why, there's this, I honestly think that it's unfair, but there's this general thought that the Romans have just copied Greek mythology and given them new Etrusco Latin names. I think that there's definitely a truth to that to an extent, but Rome has a unique mythology in and of itself, even before you get Augustus establishing the divine cult of emperors, which you'll see listed here when they talk about the religions, because I believe that it does mention both of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
Speak of the devil. All right, so obviously Constantine the 11th is a practitioner of the Greek Orthodox Church of Christianity, and I honestly, it's obviously from a modern perspective, that's how we would associate it. But like to Constantine the 11th, he is a Christian, and there's no Greek Orthodox. Like, yes, the schism has happened. There is the papacy in Rome and what have you, but he is of the Church of Constantine. Like, he is
that's fair.
Christian as
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like it's
he's Melkite.
Like he's actively, flying a banner with a high row on it. Like he's he is worshiping in the Hagia Sophia and these things that were established by Constantine and his descendants that built Constantinople into the new Rome. So then, ironically, we look back at Augustus, and they bring up the cult of Divus Augustus, worship of the emperor, which is an oversimplification. It's the divine cult of the emperors is meant to take these superlative figures of Roman culture and elevate them and deify them. And then the first person that has this done to him is, of course, Julius Caesar. And Augustus, being the political being that he is, when you has a historian Livy go through and create like a national history of Rome in his Histories of Rome. And when you read books 1 through 5, you have the story of Romulus and what have you. And Augustus is very clever in how he creates this narrative, because he sets it up where Romulus doesn't really die. He ascends to godhood, and then he's immediately followed by Numa, who is this practitioner of the Roman identity of peace, and he creates the gates of Janus, which will remain open during times of war, but will be shut during times of peace. And Augustus makes a very big deal of being the first person to have shut the doors of Janus in centuries during his reign. And so like him drawing parallels to his father being the second Romulus and him being the second Numa Pompilius is something that he very much wanted to evoke. And it's like, he was all about representing the pristine public life and first-class citizenry that presents themselves as people of dignity. Let's see.
Yeah, well said.
All right. So, as you can see, the reigns here are pretty hard to compare. Augustus begins his reign as the emperor on 16 January 27 BCE and finishes it August 19th, AD 14. So that's 27 plus 14 years versus, so that'd be 43 years as the Emperor of Rome versus like 5.
Mm-hmm.
5 years for Constantine the 11th, and that's not a knock on Constantine, by the way. Like, Constantine the 11th has a very short reign, not because he is a bad ruler, but because the enemy is at the gates. The Ottoman Empire, like throughout the years, you've had the encroaching efforts of the Arab invasion that it initially happened, but then, the Crusades had come through and created a power vacuum in the Middle East, and the Ottomans have come up in that power vacuum, and the Ottomans are a force to be reckoned with, and they are, at this point, between Crusades and constantly fighting the Sassanids and the Arabs and all of this, they're in no shape, and they are just losing ground. And so Constantine the 11th, and it doesn't help that nobody's willing to come and help them. His predecessor, who I believe was his brother, had tried to set up a whole bunch of relationships that would ensure help from like Western forces against the Ottomans, and none of them follow through on their promises. So Constantine the 11th is left alone to deal with the incoming Ottoman threat, and the Ottomans are being led by Mehmed, who is probably one of the biggest conquerors the Ottomans will ever have. And Mehmed is a bane of a lot of people. He is the enemy. Most notably, outside of this, he is the enemy of Vlad the Impaler in Wallachia. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
Believe I got that right. Just want to make sure that this way I don't goof this up and somebody doesn't look back and go, you screwed up the thing. Yeah, Mehmed II was Mehmed the Conqueror. But
yeah, it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So, cause of Augustus lives to 75. Cause of death, natural causes. Now, that's not to say that Augustus didn't lead a glorious life, because as you can see on the other side, you have cause of death for Constantine the 11th is the fall of Constantinople. And in a second, I will read Constantine the 11th's farewell address to his soldiers. That's beautiful. But Augustus, he changes Rome, and he brings stability to Rome that has been absent of it in almost a century at this point, really starting back with the Mario-Sullan civil wars. And you could even trace it back to the Punic Wars before then. Rome has been unstable, and he brings it stability, and from that stability ushers in an era of prosperity, really beginning the Pax Romana for most people. So, he is known to have jested that he came to Rome, a city of brick, and left it one of marble. And between his accomplishments and the accomplishments of his best friend and military extraordinaire Marcus Agrippa. He certainly lives up to that talk. Now, Constantine the 11th is really defined by how he handled himself in the fall of Constantinople. And he gives this beautiful speech to his men as he knows that his empire is about to die. So we're just going to read this because it's absolutely gorgeous. So when Constantinople's walls were breached, Constantine XI knew there would be no mercy, as seen by the 3 days of mass murder, rape, and pillage the Ottomans committed after the capture of the city. However, the last emperor of the more than 1,000-year-old empire did not flee with the Genoese generals and many civilians to Italy. He instead died fighting in the streets of Constantinople, but not before giving one last epic speech. Most noble leader, illustrious tribunes, generals, most courageous fellow soldiers, and all loyal, honest citizens, you know well that the hour has come. The enemy of our faith wishes to oppress us even more closely by sea and land with all his engines and skill to attack us with the entire strength of this siege force. As a snake about to spew its venom, he is in a hurry to devour us like a savage lion. For this reason, I am imploring you to fight like men with brave souls, as you have done from the beginning up to this day against the enemy of our faith. I hand over you my glorious, famous, respected, noble city, the shining queen of cities, our homeland. You know well, my brothers, that we have 4 obligations in common which force us to prefer death over survival. First, our faith and piety. Second, our homeland. Third, the emperor anointed by the Lord. And fourth, our relatives and friends. Well, my brothers, if we must fight for one of these obligations, we will be even more liable under the command strength of all 4, as you can clearly understand. If God grants victory to the impious because of my own sins, we will endanger our lives for our holy faith, which Christ gave us on his own blood. This is the most important of all. Even if one gains the entire world but loses his soul in the process, what will be the benefit? Second, he will be deprived of such famous homeland and of our liberty. Third, our empire, renowned in the past but presently humbled, low, and exhausted, will be ruled by a tyrant and an impious man. Fourth, we will be separated from our dearest children, wives, and relatives. I know the countless hordes of the impious will advance against us, according to their custom, violently, confidently, and with great courage and force, in order to overwhelm and wear out our defenders with hardship. They attempt to frighten us with loud yells and innumerable battle cries. But you are all familiar with their chattering, and I need say no more about it. For a long time they will continue so, and will also release over us countless rocks, all sorts of arrows and missiles, like the sand of the sea. But I hope that these such things will not harm us. I greatly rejoice and nourish with hopes in my mind that even if we are a few, you are all experienced and seasoned warriors, courageous, brave, and well prepared. Protect your heads with shields in combat and battle. Keep your right hand armed with the sword, extended in front of you at all times. Your helmets, breastplates, and suits of armor are sufficiently together with your weapons and will prove very effective in battle. Our enemies have none and use no such weapons. You are protected inside these walls while they advance without cover and with toil. For these reasons, my fellow soldiers, prepare yourselves, be firm, remain valiant. For the pity of God, take your example from the few elephants of the Carthaginians and how they dispersed the numerous cavalry of the Romans with their noise and appearance. If one dumb beast puts another to flight, we, the masters of horses and animals, can surely even do better against our advancing enemies, since they are dumb animals worse than pigs. Present your shields, swords, and spears against them, imagining that you are a hunting party after wild boars, so the impious may learn that they are not dealing with dumb animals, but with their lords and masters, the descendants of Greeks and Romans. Consider then, my brothers and comrades in arms, how the commemoration of our death, our memory, fame, and freedom can be rendered eternal. So
yeah. As with a lot of I don't know. That seems a little apocryphal to me, but I appreciate the sentiment. It's clearly trying to capture the view that Greece after the Byzantine Empire after the fall kind of looked back on the empire and on him, as a
for all intents and purposes, Constantine the 11th fights to the bitter end and goes down with the ship, and that there is definitely an admirable quality in that. And you had the Genoese were taking refugees. There was a chance for him to have left. He could have escaped and led a faction to go back and retake the city and potentially keep it going, but instead he stayed and he fought. And
it's more of like to me it seems like a speech that explains his actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which are probably historic.
Well, that you get that a lot when you're looking at histories, especially when you're looking at ones where the heroes die.
Mm-hmm.
They explain why exactly what they do. Hell, even with Leonidas at Thermopylae, you have the whole, he tells the other soldiers to go back to Corinth and let them know that they've died there to protect Greek rights. So
mm-hmm.
This is not really a last known words. The I found Rome of clay and leave it to you of marble was something that he said at like a dinner party, and it's not really that. He says I found Rome a city of mortar and mortar and brick, and have left it one of marble. To my knowledge, I think that he even said that before, you had the disaster of Teutoburg. Like, Varus, where are my legions, is a later line in Augustus's life than this.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Mo Biggs in the chat, and we have a Red Dress Press. Hello, Sugar Chris. Hello, Mo. Mo, you missed it. We made some announcements. The Weeb book is finally fulfilling, and you'll get your recompense for being completely dishonored during that with the Mo Biggs tier. And you're the only because that's what this stream deserves.
Ooh.
Just a single Mo Biggs like. It's all good. We'll get them in the replays, maybe.
Let's put those numbers up. Let's get them to 3 likes.
Oh, with our two people in the chat. Yeah, let's get us to 3 likes. Let's do it. All right. So, absolutely, Constantine the 11th is known for being the last Roman emperor and leading a final charge against the Ottomans and dying in the fight. And his body isn't, I believe, was never even recovered. But like he went down swinging, and that is definitely what he is known for. This again, incredible oversimplification. Being the first Roman emperor and initiating the Pax Romana is like, okay, try restructuring Roman politics, ending 40 years of civil strife and corruption, reformatting the Senate, bringing about economic stability, which had not been there since at least Caesar. Like Augustus did a great deal of things. You could literally there's a giant list of things that he is known for. So this feels like we're going to list two things because there are two things this guy's known for. They only had room for two things, Ogden. Fair enough, Mo. We have successfully guilted someone else into liking the stream. Good job, Matt. I put that on you because I'm clearly not the charismatic one. Augustus and everything after.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, guys, by the way.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming to hang out with us. Mo, it's been a minute since we've seen you in the chat. It's great to have you back. So this is actually something that Constantine the 11th actually has way more of than Augustus. Augustus actually had an act of cowardice that kind of followed him throughout his entire career at Philippi. He almost brings an L to Philippi that Antony salvages against Brutus and Cassius. And that follows him throughout his entire career because like he got like spooked during battle and like bolted away. If it weren't for Agrippa and Antony, they could have easily lost Philippi. Augustus was a phenomenal statesman and incredibly intelligent and knew the power of narrative and was an unparalleled political maneuverer, but he was not a warrior. And he was not a tactician. He surrounded himself with the right people to make those things happen, which was where Marcus Agrippa came in. But Augustus, I would not actually label a man of courage. I would label him an incredible statesman, a very effective leader, master propagandist, but courageous leader. Nah, I don't think I would label him as that. I'm sure some Rome classicist will watch this and go, "How freaking dare you!" But I mean, like, the evidence is there. He surrounded himself with brilliant people that he could delegate that stuff to. Marcus Agrippa completely slaps Cleopatra and Antony at Actium, and it's not even you would expect that Actium would be this big climactic battle, and it is just a rout. Cleopatra and Antony end up ramming through their own ships to try and get away. That's how bad it goes. We have some new people in the stream. So we've... Yeah. Oh, Mobiggs is just talking about Pale Rida. I thought that he had actually popped in for a second, but we do have a Corey Barton in the chat. Sorry, Corey, we're not talking about hot women today. We're talking about these two Chads. Constantine should have blocked the opening in Constantinople's wall with his massive balls. I mean, he tried
That's
that.
the take we came for.
He tried that, Sugar Chris, and the Ottomans shot his balls with giant fucking cannons.
Yeah.
That's really what happened is like Constantinople had these freaking massive walls that were impenetrable. And so Mehmed gets this next generation gunsmith that creates these massive cannons that just obliterate the walls. One of these days we'll do an actual video. We'll look at like a video of the fall of Constantinople. It's a really fascinating thing. I know Jack Rackham has a pretty funny one and that we can expand upon. Who did that? Who was the cannon guy for? Like, wasn't he Dutch or something? Yeah, he was a Dutch guy, and he had initially been commissioned to make these for Constantine the 11th, but they were so expensive, and he needed the funds to like buy food and provision the city. So they fired him, and he immediately turned around and offered his services to the Ottomans. Yeah. Just goes to show you that's one more thing to remember about just even that siege of Constantinople. It wasn't. This is bait. This comment right here. Uh-oh. We've already talked about this. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I feel like we need we're not going to address any stupid takes on Cleopatra for a year at this point because we've talked about a woman that caused the downfall of her freaking civilization for 2.5 hours longer than we probably should have. So also a thing with this, with their names won't be forgotten. The only reason why nobody's going to forget the name Constantine for Constantine the 11th is because Constantine the 1st. Most people don't know who Constantine the 11th is. He's a fascinating character in history. He's done he did really cool things, and even though he was facing oblivion, he never once gave up, and there is something admirable to that. But nobody knows who the hell he is. Most people know who Augustus is. Hey, he's Greece's King Arthur, right? Didn't he get his body changed to marble or something? And he will come back at a time when. No, you're thinking of Nero. There was a myth like that for Nero that I think it got applied to our buddy Constantine the 11th here. Yeah, I think that wouldn't surprise transported. I do, and they probably got it from Nero, of course. I do love Mo Biggs's comment here. Ogden considers himself a greater authority, a greater of an authority on Cleopatra's race than some random lady's grandma. He would be more remembered if he had found a way to shut the jaws of oblivion. And that's fair. I mean, just imagine if he had actually beaten the Ottoman siege. Like, there's no way in hell that he would have been able to. But if he had, that would have been an interesting. Imagine if Constantine the 11th had succeeded in repelling the Ottoman invasion, and the East Romans were a player on the board during the colonialism of the New World. Like, imagine that. That would be nuts. Alrighty. So let's take a look. I just want to say the team up with Matt and Michael is a good idea. I do enjoy the History Stream gentlemen. Thank you so much,
Oh, good.
Chris. It's a blast doing this stuff. And Matt had like hit me up last week because they're like, dude, let's take a break and like kind of figure out where we want to go. And I was like, I think that we should go back to like farming for like history videos. And so like next week, I think Invicta did a really interesting video has done a whole bunch of interesting videos on like the life of the Roman soldier, from like what would happen when a Roman soldier would die, like between how funerals would be accommodated to how they would take care of that soldier's family, et cetera, et cetera. There's some really cool stuff like that we might take a look at. There's a lot of great Roman history content out there, and we had been so bogged down with just the really stupid shit with Cleopatra, Netflix, and chasing around bad takes. That's like, you know what? Let's talk about some of the actual cool stuff. I know Matt posted up something really cool today. We're building a YouTube playlist of content for us to cover on the channel. So let's see. Let's catch up with the chat here. If he had thwarted the Ottomans, what would we eat for Thanksgiving? I don't know. I mean, he's Greek, so like gyros. I don't know. I didn't know there was a Constantine other than the comic book character. There's 11 of them at least. They're not talking about comics. They're talking about the real guy. Keanu played him in a movie, I think. No, he did not fight demons. He fought Ottomans. So similar.
Ooh.
I'm sad. I established this when we talked about the Cleopatra thing. Cleopatra was not unattractive, but she's hardly what I would call a hot babe. She was way more known for her charm and intellect. She was a very learned person that had studied philosophy, history, and sciences. I mean, she was at the epicenter of academic learning of the ancient world. All of the scholars of the ancient world came to Alexandria to learn, and so she had, she was able to speak many different languages. She was the first of the Ptolemaic rulers to be able to fluently speak ancient Egyptian. Ottomans, demons, what's the difference? This is where we get struck. We get some Turkic viewer that goes, "You guys are assholes." Julius and Mark Antony had jungle fever for sure. So if you know more about Cleopatra than Will Smith's life, whose name I can't say, Jada Pinkett Smith. Yeah, I do know more about Cleopatra than Jada Pinkett Smith, but that is not a high bar. I would say most people that have a cursory knowledge of the story behind Cleopatra probably no more than Jada Pinkett Smith, because she's clinging to a hope about an unrealistic hope about a character rather than anything based off of factual evidence. God damn it, Mo. You can type it as long as you keep it out of your fucking mouth, Corey Barton.
Mm.
All right, guys. Well, it's been the stream. We try to keep these streams to about an hour. It's been a blast getting to come back. We're really excited with the new format we're going. We will make sure that we keep you guys informed with what we are doing next week. So yeah. Let's see. I want to make sure that I get up Aldis's video again. Because Aldis did a great freaking intro for us. And we got about 3/4 of the way through it, and I pressed a button that ended the that ended it. So
Yep. But before we go, let's just do we say sayonara now, or do we do that after the video?
We will do that before the we will do that before we go into the video here. So anyways, I am your host, Michael Oden, creator and founder of Nine Realms Publishing and writer of such books as Elysian Fields and The Embrace. And Judex is coming here at the beginning of July 14th, Bastille Day. And this is my co-host, Matt Krotz. Matt Krotz, you go ahead and give your sign off.
Yeah, creator of Kyrie, fulfilling in 1 month, Kyrie book 3, and general shit poster on Twitter. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Well, I'm gonna give this the full screen, and this is gonna be what we go out to.
Bonus